our ego, the aspect of ourselves that we were created with, we were born with. It's our Father give it to us as that individuality, It's when we say ego, we're talking about the self. The self is the cause of everything that comes in our lives, whether it be good or bad. And I did a lesson about Adam and Eve. I think the ego is what that tree of good and evil is. It was meant for good. It was meant to protect us, it was meant to protect us. But as I look around in this world, everything is set up against us because everything is egotistical. Everything is set up to please that I-ness, to please that individuality. When we read in the Christ letter, when we were in chapter 1, and Christ talked about, oh, our cities have high walls, you know. And now when I understand the ego, that's how our cities are set up, where these gated communities, this rich area, this poor area. And somehow our ego, and that's just pleasing that self, our ego thinks that's a form of protection. That's a form of protection. When we understand, how the ego works, when we understand um, this individuality, this self, the self ego that Paul talks about, that's the flesh that Paul talks about. When we understand it, we have to understand the world that we're living in. And we have to fight with all that we have to overcome it. This ego was never, this individuality was never created for us to separate from each other. This ego or self identity was created for us to build communities, for us to build families. That's what this was created to have love and unity for each other, this individuality. And that's where, if we want to live that life on earth, if we want to receive what we go to church for, why we're spiritual, while we're religious, if we want all that, we have to um, make sure our ego line up with what it was intended for, why it was created, to be used by our mother and our father to bring us blessings, bring us everything good. And another thing the ego shows us, our divinity, our divinity. That everything outside of self is divine. And when we put that ego into the hands of our creator, the source of our being, we start walking in the video in our divinity. Because listen, look at it. There's no more I. There's no more me. There's no more satisfying um, the self. Just take a look. Listen, this is the most important video I'll probably ever make. Just take a look. Everything we do on this earth is is to satisfy the self. Look, the jobs, the the jobs, the house, the cars, um, the friends. Listen, it's always, if we are not built, it's always to satisfy the ego. If we're not building communities, if we're not spreading love and unity, togetherness, this world is built to satisfy that ego. And that ego is what we have to give to our Creator, give it to our source of being, so we can receive all the blessings, because we are not this body. This is not who we are. This is not who we are. So we have to take, just like Malachi said, take our tithes, that 10%, and bring it to the storehouse. Give it to our Creator, because our true self, our true self is divine. Our true self is nature. Going back to nature. That's when we know that we overcome ego. When we're in nature, we depend totally, wholly upon the source of our being, our higher self. You want to call our source of our being, our higher self, to provide for our every need. To provide for our every need. No matter what it is, our jobs, and our jobs, or just like old nature is. So when you look at this ego, this individuality, or individuality, this ego comes to identify us as humans. All creation has this I-ness. All creation has it. The trees had it. That's their individuality. Um, the grass. That's their individuality. The water has that 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 self, but they don't allow it. They don't allow that self to come out of who they truly are. Get what I'm saying? The creation doesn't let this individuality of who we truly are, let it stop them from being the divine creation they are. But somehow we, as human beings, and I think somewhere in the Bible that says that everyone pleased God except man. We are the only one that doesn't please him, because we fail to take our responsibility for what we are. We don't want to look in the mirror and see that we are the cause of everything, we are the cause of everything that's happening in our lives, because of this ego, the self. We hate our brothers and sisters. We hate um, everything is so divisive. We want the best for ourselves. We want to live in the best community, and everybody must look on us and think we're better than them. This is the cause of all sickness, all illness that's happening in this realm. This is the cause, and if it's happening to you, this is the cause. Because we think we're better than the ego is running the show. The ego is just creating an illusion. The ego is just creating an illusion of safety, an illusion of security. There's a scripture says, unless our Father watch over the city, the watchman watch in vain. So you could put up your high walls, you could put up your gates, you could be in the best position. These are all illusion. Anything outside of nature is all illusion. We have to get our mind back there. We have to get our mind to understand that who we truly are. We have to be like nature. We have to be like the trees, in spite of their individuality. As a tree, they haven't strayed from what they were created to be. Only man has. And because this world is set up to do that. And in doing that, they program our subconscious to be more selfish. All of these things that we see with the physical eyes, if it's not nature where you sit down and rely upon the source of your being to provide your every need, if it's not that, it's your ego, it's selfish. You're holding on to things for you to feel security. You're avoiding things for you to feel safe. That's we allow the ego to get the best of us. We're allowing the ego to get the best of us, and that's not why we were created. So, in order to overcome this ego, what is it going to take? Truth. Be truthful with yourself. Be truthful with yourself. Nobody's doing it to you, it's you. You are a divine being, and there is nothing that you can't do. You don't have to wait on anyone to provide for you. You don't have to wait on anyone to give you security. You have to just reprogram your belief system and understand at the core of who you are is nature. And the characteristic of nature is to provide. That's we came here being provided for. We have to become like that little child to enter the kingdom of heaven. And look at that little child. The little child depend on the source of his being, of her being, their being, depend on the mother, depend on their father to provide for them. So it doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter how long we've been going to church. We've been taught to do everything except take care of our mental abilities. And we create through our thoughts, we create through our mind. So now we have to reprogram our mind and and make sure. And when we reprogram our mind, we're reprogramming our subconscious and make sure it lines up with nature. Look at the trees and the apples, they just bear fruit. You put it in the ground and water it, and it comes forward. That's what the Bible is telling us. Everything has to do with this temple. You're not gonna, yes, this system is set up for us to go to job, work, and do this and do that, and create rifts. And oh my God, the egotistical energies that's in the job work, in the workplace. We have to avoid that. We have to avoid it. And there's a video. This guy said, listen, this is not that's not who we are. Who we are energy, divine beings, consciousness, energy vibrating at a certain frequency. And where we get our consciousness from our father and our mother, from that divine source. We can create anything we want to create. We are creating the situation we find ourselves in today. And when we when the ego and when these situations come in our lives that we we don't normally, that's bad. Oh, it's the first thing we think it's the devil. It's not the devil. It's the ego. It's the ego. It's the selfishness of the ego. And remember, because whatever you sow, you reap. If you don't put the ego under control, if you don't put that ego under control, it's going to create situations for you that you don't want, because it creates an illusion that you're being provided for, an illusion that you have security, an illusion that you have privacy, an illusion that if you're by yourself, you're okay. and you can do bad by yourself. You can do all things by yourself. That's just an illusion. And you have to hate somebody for you to feel good, or you have to love somebody, or you have to hold on to somebody for you to have security. No, these are all illusion. If you're not depending upon the source of your being, your mother and your father, to provide everything, in spite you go to the job, your happiness and your blessing doesn't depend on the job. In spite you go to in spite you have a husband, your happiness and your joy doesn't depends on how your husband treats you. Your happiness depends on the source of your being. We have to reprogram it, because we have to reprogram our mind to understand that, because we are creating the universe that we want to live in. So anything that we do here, we get up every morning, we live in the most beautiful house, we drive the best car, we live in the worst house, we live in the worst area, we're struggling. These are illusions. Whatever we're doing, these are just concepts designed by man. These are illusions. So in spite you're getting up every morning, um, and going to work, or you're living in the worst area and you're struggling, in spite of that, those are your struggles are an illusion, because all you are, you're a divine being. You're driving the worst car. These things are an illusion. You live in the worst house. Those are just illusion. These are just earthly concepts that your ego man has created, and then your ego think you need it. In spite of all this that you're doing, you have to understand who you are. You have to be conscious. You have to be aware that who you are within is God. You have your Father living within you, and you can create um any situation you want for your life, and you must depend on the source of your being, that in spite you're working, whatever you're doing, whatever these illusions, they don't determine your happiness. It's your dependency on the source of your being. And this is how we change this world. We want change. This is how we change this world. We're not dependent on the politicians. In spite of we go out there and vote, we're still, because who we are, our is nature. Go in nature and sit down and look how nature works. This is who we are. So in spite that we vote, we don't expect these politicians to do anything for us. We just go along there, but in the hearts of heart, we have an understanding of who we truly are. We have an understanding of who we are and who we are. We are divine beings. We are consciousness. We're energy beings, conscious beings, vibrating at a certain frequency. And conscious means you aware of your divinity. You aware that you all of this, even this body we're looking at, this body is not even solid. This is an illusion. So when you talk about the way somebody look, or we spend so many times in the mirror and talking about our beauty and all this is an illusion, because we're not solid. At the core of who we are, our energy vibrating at a certain frequency. And this is the time we're living in, and this is the time we have to go back to. We have to go back to nature. We have to go back. We not even have to. We are going back to nature, and we are going back to live our lives as divine beings. So don't be caught in all this illusion. Don't be caught. This is my message today. Don't be caught up in all this illusion. Take that 10%, take that ego, take that self, and bring it to the storehouse, and let the windows of heaven open up and pour down blessing, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This is what Malachi was trying to tell us. Everything is happening. It's this body the Bible talking about. Don't look outside of yourself for anything or look to anyone. Everything you need is within this body. You're already creating your reality. Just create a good one. You're already doing it. Why are you creating all those bad things in your life? By being selfish, by being egotistical. Create great things because this is who we truly are, and this is why we're here, to understand who we are and to participate in the creation with our mother and our father. And remember, it's not the devil. It's not the devil, it's your ego. Be blessed, everyone.